Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I am Ryan Wormeli, joined on this fine Thursday morning. It's actually not fine. It's pretty overcast out, but it's fine because we're talking fantasy football. And I'm joined by Andrew Erickson and Derek Brown. Fellas, we are diving into our must-sit players here as we head into Week 6 of the 2023 NFL fantasy football season. We will start off at the running back position like we always do. And Erickson, I will start with you. Give me your first must-sit running back here in Week 6.
Zach Moss. I don't want to play Zach Moss this week. I think that DBro was spot on with the process last week about benching Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor, but Zach Moss ran hotter than the sun against the number one run defense. He was untouchable. He was Adrian Peterson against the Titans. So I was going to bet on that not happening again. You know, Jonathan Taylor's expected to be more involved this week than he was last week. And the Jaguars defense is a really strong run defense. Top 5 fewest rushing yards per game allowed, 8th in expected points added in run defense. So I know people are going to try to put Moss in their lineups because like, oh, he was really good last week. Good match. It was a bad matchup last week, but he still delivered. It's like that should not have happened. Like the process was correct last week in benching Zach Moss. Don't fall for the trap chasing last week's points with Moss. I want to sit him this week. And I honestly don't understand why he's like RB24 in the ECR. Like, I think that's way too high.
Have we seen enough? I'm with you on this week, but have we seen enough to say that we do think he might have standalone value moving forward this season? I mean, he's just been so productive. Or do you think once Jonathan Taylor has his sea legs under him again, it's a true handcuff situation?
I think it's a handcuff situation. I think it's just annoying that he's going to be involved. Like the whole like standalone value thing with running backs is... It's really overblown, to be totally honest. Like what second running back has standalone value right now? Like we make debates every once in a while. There's a running back that pops up as a number 2 here and there, but like there are no running backs you want to start with standalone value as that aren't the featured guy on their team. Like
Tyler
you're starting
Algier,
him out of
maybe.
Yeah, it's like in certain matchups, like okay, but like you're not starting Tyler Algier every single week, being like, I feel absolutely great about it. So. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs is like the closest guy to that, and even he's not someone that's consistent. So, for me, it's Moss. I don't think is going to be a standalone value player. I think he's just going to be annoying when it comes to JT's upside and ceiling. Yeah,
quickly, DBro, before we move to your player, Erickson mentioned that he thinks Moss's ECR is way too high. Where do you have Moss ranked, DBro?
I was just looking at that. I was going to ask Erickson what he has him at. I've got him at RB32. I think the RB3 range is about right, considering probably 10 to 12 touches, but... if Miles Sanders doesn't get ruled out, I'll bump him over him. I guess two-parter here, Erickson. Where do you have Moss at, and do you have JT over Moss, or is it flipped?
I have JT over Moss, and I have Zach Moss as like RB41. Like,
okay,
I don't
disagree with that.
Like,
I don't disagree with that.
There are plenty of other running backs I'd much rather play.
Jacksonville is a pass funnel. We need to let people know that. Like, they are a pass funnel.
I just think you're chasing last week's points. Like, again, if he doesn't have that one massive run where he just kind of split the defense and the blocking was like absolutely perfect. Like, what if that had been Jonathan Taylor on that exact play? Like, we wouldn't even be considering Zach Moss inside the top 24. So I think that he's being way too hyped up. And I think it's more like a 50-50 split this week as opposed to last week when it was like 80-20. And I think that means JT's the guy I would rather play.
DBro, who's your first running back here that you're sitting this week?
Well, I know Erickson's not going to like this one, and a lot of people, I got a lot of, I'm not going to say hate, but a lot of pushback whenever last week, and I wrote the primer up, and I'm like, hey, Brian Robinson's an RB2, RB3, and I'm going to get the same pushback about Alexander Mattison. But we need to understand the Bears' run defense is better than people give it credit for. I'm not telling you that the pass defense is great. It's not. But the run defense does need some respect put on its name. And Alexander Mattison coming off a season low of 51% of snaps. I don't know if that bounces back. We don't know. We shall see. But looking at the Bears' run defense, 10th lowest explosive run rate allowed, 6th highest stuff rate. This team is allowing the 10th lowest yards per carry to zone runs, which account for 62.5% of Mattison's rushing work. So Mattison... I do not want to put him in a lineup. I don't know that Cam Akers isn't going to out-carry him this week. I don't think he's going to be productive on the work that he gets, so you can count me out on Alexander Mattison.
Erickson, I feel like between the Tuesday show and the Thursday show, I can't remember the last week you and I didn't have at least some conversation on Alexander Mattison. It seems like we were just always having to discuss him every single week. You're above consensus on him this week by a few spots. So why are you viewing him as more of a start than a sit?
I mean, the Bears' defense was good against the run last week because the Commanders didn't run the ball. They rushed the ball 6 times, and then they dropped back to through like 50 times in a row. So of course Brian Robinson wasn't going to do anything last week because they never decided to run the football. So I mean, McLaurin was fine, 72 rushing yards. Edwards-Helaire had 55 rushing yards. Like Pacheco, 62. Like Rachaad White. Rachaad White had a career game against the Bears. 73 rushing yards and a touchdown.
Well, that's a low mark. Rachaad White's not been good.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, Madison's not going to be an RB2 this week against the Bears. Like, their defense is still horrible. They're going to be put in position where they can score touchdowns. Like, Mattison can't find the end zone. Like, he's still the goal line back.
Saying he's an RB2 really would, like, how many wide receivers would you want to start over him? Like,
I don't think people are starting I'm talking about your RB2 slot where everyone is like needs bodies and players to play.
It's a wasteland.
Like, are you going to play any of these? I mean, is it the Mattison matchup worse than what Breece Hall has or what Dameon Pierce has or what Rachaad White has? Like, those are the other RB2s that have horrible matchups. When I look at Mattison, I'm like, I don't think his matchup is horrible. Like, yes, you pointed out the Bears run defense. Maybe they're not the bottom of the worst of the league. Okay. But it's still a more favorable matchup than Eagles, Lions, and Saints. Like, can you agree with me on that at least? So, like, that's why I have them. I haven't ranked over those guys, and that kind of puts him in the top 20 range.
I'll give you an interesting conundrum here. Considering the offense, considering we've seen out of the backfield, if Jeff Wilson is active, would you rather play Jeff Wilson or Madison?
I think that Jeff Wilson
versus Carolina,
you're wish casting. Like,
am I?
How many touches is he going to get? Is he going to get 10 carries? I feel
he
pretty
might
confident.
out-carry Alexander Mattison this week.
Okay, so if you had to bet on it right now, you would bet Jeff Wilson would have more carries than Alexander Mattison this week. Yeah, at even odds, you would bet on Jeff Wilson, who we've not.
No.
Okay, there you go.
Will he be more productive
do you
on those
guys
carries? Is the question,
establish
Erickson.
another wager on this show?
I need to get my money back because the back hurts getting bailed out with a touchdown.
If Jeff Wilson's active, Jeff Wilson fantasy points more than Alexander Madison, half PPR. I'll do it.
See, no, Jeff Wilson's going to score a touchdown. That's why
what? You don't want to bet on your boy? You don't want to bet on your boy? Oh, no.
Erickson is crushing in his points per carry league.
Yeah.
DBro, the other thing I will say on Mattison here quickly is, kind of like one of the reasons obviously Brian Robinson didn't do much in this matchup is because of the game script. I know you're a Justin Fields guy. If we think that this offense has kind of figured some things out, there's a chance that it could be another negative game script for the Vikings and therefore for the running game again too. So that is another thing to keep in mind. We got to move on though. So let's go to Erickson's next must-sit running back here.
So I'm looking at Miles Sanders. Don't care if he plays. Don't care if he's active. So the injury he's on now is a shoulder injury, which is different than the groin injury. So that's something you really want to point out, that last week he was healthy. Like, he was not on the injury report. So he was good to go. Even if he looked like not great, he was supposedly healthy. Now he's a shoulder injury. And look, he's just been horrible this year. 43rd in rushing success rate among 44 qualifying running backs. He has the shoulder injury. He's PFF's 57th grade running back among 58 qualifying running backs. And he's been outsnapped by Chuba Hubbard the last 2 weeks. Like, Miles Sanders is really trending in the wrong direction. And even if he plays, and we've seen Miami, give up some big games to running backs, but for the most part, they're starting to kind of turn a corner and look more like the team they were last year against the run, where they're actually pretty decent. So if I'm going to start a Panthers running back this week, his name is not Miles Sanders. Like, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, there's like nobody that I liked in draft season more that I like less now than Miles Sanders. It's just the offense is ugly. He's bagged up. He hasn't been very good. I think it's very easy to sit him. If you guys,
I was trying to follow that logic, how you crafted that sentence, Worm. I was like,
I'm saying that the gap between what I liked him in draft season versus where I like him now is wide. It's not that I was like all gung ho about Miles Sanders, but I did like him, and he has just fallen off, for a number of different reasons. Does that make sense? Do you follow that logic?
Yes. Okay. I got you, Worm.
I thank you for allowing me the chance to clarify.
It's kind of like warm and fresh Taco Bell versus like 4-hour-old Taco Bell, you're kind of like, oh, yay. Versus,
well, we're going to have another week of weird worm takes. I've never been to Taco Bell. Not once have I ever eaten it.
Oh, are you serious?
Not once. I have never once had any Taco Bell. Not a single item.
I don't even know.
When I was a kid, I was pretty anti-Mexican food, and now I do like it more, but I've just never got back to the kind of fast food, setup. So I'm not opposed. I would try it one day. This isn't like I'm digging my heels in. I just have not had it. So
no, you got to keep it because you got to have it
at this point
in your back pocket for never have I ever, ever had Taco Bell. There you go.
Never ever had Taco Bell. Never have I ever smelled anything. Yeah, all that's good stuff.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
If you need new tires for your car, Discount Tire is your go-to. They have exceptional service, and you get a 30% shorter average wait time when you buy and book online at discounttire.com. They have this really cool feature called Treadwell, which is an online tire buying guide that gives you transparency on tire performance, as well as personalized recommendations based on your location and driving habits. Discount Tire is also the largest independent tire retailer in the country, so it has the biggest selection of tires and wheels. And here's a pro tip from the experts at Discount Tire. You can prevent wear and boost gas mileage by keeping your tires properly inflated. Tire pressure supports the weight of your vehicle and is important to check for safety. So if it's been over a month since you last checked your tire pressure, stop by one of their local stores for a free tire safety and air pressure check. Discount Tire, let's get you taken care of. DBro, give me your next must-sit running back.
Well, this poor guy, I don't know if there's any tread left in these tires because he's not going anywhere. Just spinning and just moving in no directions. And that's Rachaad White, man. It's been a sad sort this season for Rachaad White. 19.1 touches per game, not doing much with it, only 73 total yards. And this week, going against the Detroit Lions, keep talking about him, keep telling people this is an elite run defense. 4th lowest explosive run rate, 4th lowest yards after contact per attempt. Rachaad White's going to have a really nasty stat line. If he does not get in the end zone this week for you, you're probably going to be disappointed that you played him.
Erickson, Rachaad White's somebody that you were higher on like early on in the season and in draft season. Are you kind of coming around here and agreeing with DBro?
I mean, he's a volume play. Like, he's still a starting running back. Nobody else in the backfield is good enough to supplant him for touches. So
yeah, that's true.
Once we see something different out of the bye week, I just look. He's better than I think that the situation he's in. Just the Buccaneers can't run block. Like, they've been really good in pass blocking this year, but they can't run block. So the saving grace with White is at least he's involved in the passing game. Like, we're seeing that, increase a little bit. And if Mike Evans isn't playing this game, then you could see, okay, more targets for Rachaad White. And yeah, he's touchdown dependent, but he's not going to really be efficient as a rusher, and he just really hasn't had, many lanes to run through. So yeah, I think he's a low-end RB2 volume play.
Erickson, give me your next must-sit.
Yep. So Jerome Ford, I wanted to sell high on him after he became the starting running back for the Browns. Just not good vibes coming out of Cleveland right now. Just essentially no Deshaun Watson. I don't really know what is going on with Deshaun Watson and his shoulder injury. It's just you expect him after the bye week to come back, and he's not practicing. It's like, and they said he was medically cleared like 2 weeks ago. So I don't really know what's going on there. But like the 49ers, this is just a bad matchup overall, like again for running backs. And Jerome Ford has been not good. Like basically he's had like one explosive run that he had in the game where Nick Chubb got hurt. And he's basically done nothing since. So ranks dead last in rushing success rate this year. Like, would not surprise me at all if we see Kareem Hunt, who's now been with the team longer, gets more ramped up in this offense and is more in the game plan opposed to when he was first signed with the team. So I'm not confident in the usage for Jerome Ford. Hate the matchup. Not confident in the offense. Sit. Easy.
Yeah, I mean, if Deshaun doesn't play, the 49ers could win this game 80-0 if they wanted. Like
PJ Walker season?
This is like, it's going to get ugly, and that it does not spell good things for Ford, I don't think. DBro, give me your last must-sit running back.
Man, first of all, I'm here for Pierre Strong season. Can we get that? I want some Pierre Strong in my life. The one guy I do not want in my life this week, and I know we've talked about him on previous shows, Dameon Pierce. This New Orleans run defense is really finding itself this year. Coming into the year, we had a lot of questions, retooling, guys they picked up in the NFL draft and stuff, but they're really finding their way. New Orleans is allowing the 10th lowest missed tackle rate in the NFL, second lowest yards per carry to zone runs, which account for 66% of Dameon Pierce's rushing production. And we also have to talk about this offensive line is doing him no favors. Like, Dameon Pierce is breaking a lot of tackles, but it doesn't really matter. 18th in missed tackles forced per attempt. When you're behind an offensive line that has the 8th worst yards before contact per attempt, he gets hit in the backfield. He cannot even get a head of steam before he's facing 2, 3, 4 tacklers trying to bring him down. And that's what's going to happen again this week. So I got to sit Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, Pierce is a guy I really liked in draft season. Also, just it being optimistic about this offense. And I've been kind of proven right about the offense because CJ Stroud has been amazing, but it just hasn't really translated to these high-scoring games for Pierce. So I think that's really fair. Quickly, Erickson, what do you make of Pierce this week?
Yeah, I don't like the matchup again, but this is why I didn't like drafting Pierce, because I hated their schedule to open the year, and their offensive line was all hurt.
That's rough.
But this is why Pierce, I think, is a buy, like in trades, because the offensive line is getting healthier, and the schedule is going to get easier for the Texans. So he's a guy, even though last week it wasn't super productive, like Devin Singletary is like not eating into his role at all. So if this offense really does start to cook a little bit sooner with some more favorable matchups down the stretch, Dameon Pierce is a guy you're going to want to have. So I know he's been disappointing, but I think that the outlook rest of the season is going to be better for him.
It's the
That's
Saints.
a good call, Erickson, man. Like, they after this week, they get the Panthers, the Buccaneers, the Bengals, and the Cardinals.
They do have a bye after this week, but then,
nice.
that Panthers matchup in week 8 looks great.
Time to buy after another bad game against the Saints. Like, he sucks. And it's like, you should definitely go buy Dameon Pierce.
Let's do some who do I start here using our tool. This is free to use at fantasypros.com/start. You guys can head there, put in your own starter sit questions, up to 4 players at a time. You can even pick and choose which experts your decision draws from if you have certain guys that you really trust, like Erickson or DBro. So you guys can go use that tool again. That's free to use at fantasypros.com/start. Erickson, the first one I actually had written down here, DBro already asked you, is Zach Moss or Jonathan Taylor this week. You said you were starting Taylor, so I'll move to my next one for you. And that was Miles Sanders or Amari Demercado. It's 50-50 in the tool, I will tell you that right now. So kind of what direction are you leaning there?
It's Amari for me.
That's nice.
That's a classic bit there. Love it. Then the last one is actually put 2 of your players head-to-head, Jerome Ford or Zach Moss this week. Erickson?
Oh, I thought DBro was getting that question. His face was like, I'm ready to take on this question.
These are your two players.
I just drank bitter beer, man. Whoa.
I mean, why are you making me pick between 2 evils, man?
Because it's difficult.
You find the lesser one. Find the lesser of 2.
It's Jerome Ford versus Zach Moss. That's what I'm picking between.
Yeah.
Oh, gross. I guess I'll just hedge with Zach Moss and hope that maybe he just still gets the work. I don't know. I mean, I just want no part of this Browns unit.
DBro, since Erickson wants you to answer that one, what do you think? Jerome Ford or Zach Moss?
I'll go with Moss. I have a lot more faith of the Colts' ability to move the ball this week. PJ Walker's under center. I don't even know if the Browns get in the red zone this week.
DBro, I got a couple for you too. Alexander Mattison or Brian Robinson this week?
Ooh. I'm going to go B-Rob.
Okay. Yeah, I think that one is pretty close. And then I think they're back-to-back in ECR, actually. And then lastly, I'm putting 2 of yours together. These guys are back-to-back in the rankings too. Rachaad White or Dameon Pierce?
Oh, moly. Give me Dameon Pierce. If we're going to compare run defenses, Detroit is fearsome compared to New Orleans. And New Orleans is no schmo, but Detroit is no joke, man.
All right, let's get to the must-sit wide receivers. Erickson, starting with you.
Going to go with a guy that I think a lot of people picked up off the waiver wire a couple weeks ago, and that's Josh Palmer for the Chargers. When you look at the box score, it looks really nice. He led the team in targets. He had 8 targets, 3 catches for 77 yards. But for 59 minutes of that game, Josh Palmer did basically nothing on his 7 targets. He basically got over like the majority of his yardage on the last play of the game where he caught a 51-yard strike and dime from Justin Herbert to basically close out the game. So don't forget about that. You have Austin Eckler coming back to the offense. That's going to eat into Josh Palmer's target share. You have Quentin Johnston potentially taking on a larger role coming off of the bye week. That's going to eat into Josh Palmer's target share. And you have, again, a bad matchup against the Dallas Cowboys, allowing the fewest fantasy points to perimeter wide receivers this season. Third fewest receiving yards allowed overall to wide receivers. Second lowest catch rate to wide receivers. So, yes, there is no Trayvon Diggs, but at the same time, I would not go chasing the Josh Palmer box score. I know it was a while ago, which is why I bring it up. I want to make sure people realize what Josh Palmer actually did in week 4 and not just look at the box score and be like, oh, he got 8 targets. Like, this guy's locked and loaded to be a wide receiver 3 for me this week. Shootout against Dallas. I would not say that's the case whatsoever. So I think that he's somewhat fraudulent, and I want to make sure that people are aware that Josh Palmer's not really set up to smash, as the kids would say, this week.
DBro, who's your first must-sit receiver?
This is going to be a guy that a lot of people have been plugging into their lineups, and he's outperformed expectations. Marquise Brown. He's wide receiver 17 in fantasy, so I get it. If you do not want to sit him, you can't sit him, but you need to temper expectations and sit him if you can. Like, going against the Los Angeles Rams, these outside corners for the Rams are no joke. Everybody had fun in the offseason with all their Rams jokes about how terrible they're going to be. You know, talk about takes that have aged like milk. That's one of them. Their defense has been surprising, especially with the outside cornerback play of Ahkello Witherspoon and Darion Kendrick. Both of these guys are allowing less than 75 passer ratings in their coverage. You have Los Angeles Rams who are allowing the 5th fewest fantasy points per game to wide receivers and the 2nd lowest PPR points per target to perimeter wide receivers. So Marquise Brown has been running hot. It's going to cool off this week.
DBro, where do you have Hollywood Brown in your rest of season wide receiver rankings? He's actually fairly low in the consensus rest of season rankings. Where do you have him?
I have got Mr. Hollywood Brown at wide receiver 34. Okay. That might be low, but
So it's actually higher than consensus. Consensus is down at 37, which I thought wide receiver 4 maybe seemed a little low given what we've seen this year.
It's low.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he should be in wide receiver 3 territory, like in the same ballpark and conversation as Jacoby Myers and DeAndre Hopkins is where I put him.
I think that's reasonable. I think that's a more accurate kind of ranking for him there. Erickson, give me your next must-sit guy.
Wide receiver, I'm going to sit Amari Cooper. Again, same thing. Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Watson have question marks about his availability. We saw Cooper put up a stinker without Deshaun Watson the last time they played. And Cooper's only had one good game this year. I know his usage has been pretty good. You know, he's top 10 in air yard share. He's getting a decent amount of targets. It's just the production has just been lackluster for Cooper. And I really think it's even his fault, honestly. Like, I think Amari Cooper's still like super underrated. And it just doesn't really matter because quarterback play has been so far worse than it was last year with Jacoby Brissett, or without Jacoby Brissett. And I don't expect things to get better if Watson is playing with a shoulder injury or they have PJ Walker in there. I think that, look, Cooper has boom or bust games. This is trending into the bust category for Cooper. So I think instead of trying to plug him back into your lineup after the bye week, I think it just makes sense to just kind of keep him on the bench.
Yeah, if Deshaun doesn't play, like there is almost no receiver you could pit against him that I would not start ahead of Cooper. Like it's this matchup. If it's DTR starting,
Cooper is the guy though that does somehow be productive when you feel so confident benching him. But it's like, look, I'm just gonna follow the process here, and it just says like, just try to avoid Amari Cooper, even if he ends up, catching a touchdown.
And he wasn't.
He wasn't.
They're at home this week, right, guys?
Yeah.
He only has one top 30 finish this year, so it's not great.
I think there's a world where if DTR is starting, they don't even get 50 yards in that game. Like,
well, they said he's not. They said it's going to be Walker. That was
PJ Walker.
I was saying DTR because last time, yes. If it's not Deshaun, I think there's a world where they don't even get 50 or 75 yards in that game. Like, I think if San Fran wanted to, they could put the clamps down. DBro, give me your next must-sit wide receiver.
Speaking of clamps, man, AJ Terrell is going to put the clamps on Terry McLaurin this week. It's not going to be pretty. AJ Terrell has been shadowing players and shutting them down. He's followed receivers on 53 to 86%, Calvin Ridley, of their routes. And with that, no wide receiver in his primary coverage has done anything. No wide receiver in his primary coverage has surpassed 38 receiving yards. So if A.J. Terrell is on Terry McLaurin, he's not doing anything this week. Got to sit him.
What's been your reaction to McLaurin so far this season, DBro? Because I know there was like some interest in, I mean, like obviously Jahan Dotson has been a huge disappointment for where people were drafting him, but McLaurin just like hasn't quite gotten there despite Sam Howell looking good at times, showing flashes.
It's been sad. I think this comes down to Sam Howell. I think that it comes down to Sam Howell not pushing the ball and not putting the ball up and just asking McLaurin to win. And we've seen when quarterbacks have done that, Taylor Heineke, that Terry McLaurin can do that. But Sam Howell doesn't do that. He takes the path of least resistance. It's, oh, hey, look at Logan Thomas down there. I like you, Logan Thomas. Another good play this week. But with Logan Thomas, are these running backs in the checkdown game? That's really all Sam Howell does, man. Or if wide receivers are running wide open, he'll hit them in stride. But past that, he's not going to throw up 50-50 balls. And the sad thing is that's hurting Terry McLaurin as well as Terry McLaurin can play this year.
Yeah. All right, Erickson, give me your last must-sit receiver.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tyler Lockett here. Look, Tyler Lockett, you're always trying to see like the zone versus man splits, the defense he's playing to see if it's going to be a Lockett week or a DK Metcalf week. And I mean, I can't find anything that like suggests that this is like a Lockett spot for him against the Bengals. Bengals have been pretty good against receivers this year. Third lowest catch rate allowed, fifth fewest receptions allowed to wide receivers. And Lockett has pretty much done nothing outside of a 2-touchdown game he had in week 2. Like, he doesn't have the most targets on the team. That's Metcalf. And I expect JSN to have a larger role out of the team's bye week. Now, his routes increased in week 4. JSN also had 6 targets the last time the Seahawks played, which tied Lockett for the team lead the last time they played in week 4. And the thing that with why I think JSN could have a larger role is because I think that the Seahawks have been using more tight end sets, not because they have more tight ends, but it's because their offensive line has been injured. Like, they've had offensive line issues, so they've been having to run more 2 tight end sets to help protect Geno Smith. Their offensive line is healthy now because they're coming after their bye week. They're going to get Charles Cross back. They're going to get Abraham Lucas back. So I think that allows them to run more 11 personnel, which I think is what they want to do, but they weren't able to do so because of the injuries. And I think that means more JSN, more Jason on the field means less targets for Tyler Lockett. So again, I know people are low on JSN, but like you gotta stash him one more week and see if something changes after the bye week. Because if nothing changes again, then it's like, okay, this is probably not going to happen this year without an injury. But I want to give it one more week with JSN, so I'm just hesitant on Lockett. Like, he's not the worst start. You know, he's still a good receiver to play, but I don't think that this is, oh, you got to jam in your lineup. You didn't have to use him last week because of a bye week. So if you have better alternatives, I would just play somebody else.
Yeah, DBro, you're actually, I knew you were higher on Tyler Lockett than Erickson by about 10 spots this week, but I was down looking, and you're actually also higher on JSN. So are you just expecting a big game from this passing offense?
I'm going to drop Tyler Lockett a little bit in my ranks. Erickson, where do you have Lockett at right now? I kind of want to be in wide receiver.
I'm pretty in line with you. I mean, look, he's a wide receiver 3 for me. Like, he's not, again, he's not like, oh my God, you started Lockett. Like, what are you doing? Because he still plays a lot and he can catch a touchdown, but like through a month, he's had 1 good game. And it's like, okay, well, and there are other receivers that get the ball. So I want to push
JSN. I almost put JSN into today's shows because I agree with Erickson. I think that this is actually sets up better as a JSN breakout game than it does a Tyler Lockett game this week. So I agree. I'm going to drop Tyler Lockett into that wide receiver 3 range. Like, I've got him, I'm going to put him probably wide receiver 30, wide receiver 35 this week. So low end, and I might actually flip Lockett and JSN in the ranks.
DBro, give me your last must-sit receiver.
It's got to be DeAndre Hopkins, man. Going against the Baltimore Ravens, they've allowed the 8th fewest fantasy points per game to wide receivers. Marlon Humphrey's back, and I know he didn't play good, but again, first game back, kicking off the rust. But between him and Brandon Stevens has been fantastic this year. 78 passer rating in his coverage. DeAndre Hopkins, we're looking at, okay, he's coming off a good game, but look at the secondary where he had that massive game against. This is not that secondary. Baltimore is playing really, really good pass defense. You got to sit DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, and to your point on Humphrey, he was actually not. It was that one broken play that Pickens scored to get the game winner, but it's not like he was getting burned right and left, throughout the game.
Agreed.
So I mean, he's obviously really good, and like you said, another week healthier now.
But like mid-season, Marlon Humphrey doesn't get that play doesn't happen.
Yeah, for sure,
does not happen
for sure. You're telling me. Erickson, let's do some Who Do I Start?
I'm just stroking the ego of the Ravens fan, baby. That's what I'm here to do.
Thank you. Let's do some Who Should I Starts here. Erickson, Josh Palmer or KJ Osborne this week?
KJ Osborne. I think that I like Osborne a lot more than the consensus does. I think that people just kind of look at him as like, oh, Jag, like he's Josh Palmer 2.0. But, I watched him a lot this offseason for some... We're just kind of like reviewing some tape on KJ Osborne specifically, and he's really good after the catch. Like, I think that he can make a lot of plays after the catch. And when you look at this Bears defense, they can't tackle. Like, they are horrible at wrapping up, making tackles. So I think Osborne is going to surprise some people this week. I think that people are kind of viewing him as like, oh, like whatever, I want Jordan Addison. But I think that KJ Osborne could surprise and have a really effective game.
So this next one, I know the direction you're going. I know DBro is going to agree. I fully agree. But this is like 50-50 amongst the experts, and they're back-to-back in the rankings. So I just wanted to bring this up to highlight how much I disagree with it. Amari Cooper or Zay Flowers this week?
Zay Flowers?
Yes.
What?
That's close?
It's very close.
Why are people questioning Zay Flowers? Why does he get targets?
The expert consensus, people are, I think it's more that people are still believing in Cooper for some reason that I don't understand, but they are back-to-back in the expert consensus rankings in half PPR as of the time we're recording this, and about 50-50 split on who the experts would start. So
let's put some respect on Zay's name. I've got him at wide receiver 14. I've got Cooper at wide receiver... Oh, it's taking me a second. I got to look down here.
I
wide
think
receiver
it's probably just people catching up to the injury. Because if Watson's actually ruled out, I think we're going to see a stark difference.
Yeah. That's gonna get updated
probably
as we move through.
And then last one here. This is 50-50 exactly in our Who Do I Start tool. Tyler Lockett or Gabe Davis, Erickson?
I'm just going to ride the heater that Gabe Davis is on. Like, is he going to catch touchdowns every week? Like, probably not. But at this point, like, why bet against it? We have McCaffrey can score 17 touchdowns in a row. Why can't Gabe Davis? And they're playing the Giants. That's a great matchup. So just play.
All I heard was Erickson's going to bet the Gabe Davis at anytime touchdown weekly now.
Yeah. DBro, we'll go quickly through yours here. Marquise Brown or Christian Kirk, also 50-50.
Kirk.
Terry McLaurin or Drake London? I feel like I've asked this exact question like 3 times. It's always McLaurin or London.
Gotta go Drake London, man.
I'm going to go London. And
then lastly, this one also 50-50. DeAndre Hopkins or Garrett Wilson?
Garrett Wilson.
All right, let's go to the quarterback, tight end, defense, special team segment. We are going to group these guys together. Erickson, give me your QB, tight end, and DST.
Yep, so I'm going to sit Sam Howell. Again, I told you guys to sit CJ Stroud last week. He was amazing until he played the Falcons. And that's who Sam Howell's playing this week. So I don't want to take a part of this Falcons defense. I think they're legit. So I'm sitting Sam Howell, the sack machine himself. I'm going to sit Chig Okonkwo at tight end. Look, Ravens are allowing the 3rd fewest receiving yards to tight ends this season. Okonkwo got to 33 yards last week with a minute remaining in the 4th quarter. Before his last 8-yard catch, he was sitting on 4 catches for 25 yards. So despite the fact that he's saw some targets last week, I think it's fraudulent. Don't go chasing Waterfalls or Chig Okonkwo against the Ravens. And lastly, I'm going to sit the Saints DST. Again, coming off a big week against the Patriots offense. The Texans, man, CJ Stroud doesn't get sacked, doesn't throw picks. This is not a DST smash spot for the Saints on the road against the Texans. I like the Texans a lot in this matchup. So I'm going to be betting against the Saints here, and I'm going to sit their DST.
I'm glad you said it, Erickson, because I think that's the 3rd time one of you guys has said, don't go chasing this show. And every time I wanted to follow up with Waterfalls. So
anytime that we can work in a TLC reference, it has to be done.
I'm glad somebody said it. Erickson,
finally a good worm take about something related to pop culture.
We're due. He was due to regress to the mean. So
we're due.
I'll be honest, I couldn't have told you who sang that song, but I guess it's TLC.
Oh, never mind. We're right back on the same sauce. Never mind. That lasted, what, 10 seconds worth?
Music is a blind spot. I'm actually like pretty decent at movie trivia and like obviously sports stuff. Music knowledge is I like
your
music,
Shrek
obviously.
Your Shrek takes say you're not
That's an
decent at movie
opinion, though.
trivia.
That's not like knowledge. I just have no music knowledge really at all. I just enjoy music, but I don't know much about it. Erickson, quickly, Sam Howell or Baker Mayfield?
Baker Mayfield.
Mm-hmm.
All right, DBro, give me your QB, tight end, and defense.
Well, I'm going to sit the stack here. I sit Josh Dobbs. Talked about how good Los Angeles pass defense. That's going to bleed over to Josh Dobbs. 11th lowest yards per attempt allowed. 8th lowest passer rating. Not going to play him. And unless he runs, he's not going to pay off in fantasy. The next guy I got to bring up here, and we've talked about it. We've poo-pooed this offense. So I'm just going to add on top of this. David Njoku. Cannot play him. And I do need to sit here and give David Njoku some praise here, though. Have y'all seen the picture that's floating around social media of like how horrible those burns were? The fact that man went out and supported his teammates, played the game. I do not want to play him in fantasy, but we absolutely need to give him respect and credence put on his name for going out there and putting and getting through it and playing last week. So I do not want to play him in fantasy, but all the props to David Njoku in real life, man. But this matchup's terrible. 8th fewest fantasy points per game allowed to tight end, 6th lowest receiving yards allowed. So not playing David Njoku, and I'm going to sit the Cleveland Browns defense on top of this. And I understand if people want to play them. They have been a very, very good defense. But this 49ers offense is set up perfectly to defeat what the Browns do. They have the second highest rate of man coverage. We just saw them demolish the Dallas Cowboys man coverage with a large dose of Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle. That's going to happen again this week.
How imagine telling like us in August that we would get to the point where we have to list Josh Dobbs as a sit, like telling people not to start him. What a journey it's been for him.
He's had some good weeks though, man.
For
like
sure.
2 games where he's been top 12.
It's warranted. It's warranted.
It is.
I'll ask you a similar question that I asked Erickson: Josh Dobbs or Baker Mayfield?
Baker.
All right. That will do it for us in the Must Sit Show. For DBro and Erickson, I am Ryan Wormeli. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time.